due to time, just we'll hold questions, but a little bit about me. My name is Leticia Lopez. I am the Senior Recreation Director. And for those who took my positive confrontation, you know your conflict style and a little bit of the basic conflict. For those new coordinators, I will see you next week at Expo for that. This is completely different. This is all about sports. I was in the sports board, so those were my sports colleagues back there. Jennifer was there as well. I am currently on the citywide training task force. And so today it's just focusing on sports conflict. Okay, so the purpose of this training is to understand, prevent, and address and resolve majority of the sports conflict we deal at centers. So here, obviously, you know a good parent versus a bad parent, but I just leave this on for you to see. But right now, all of you know what's good, what's bad. So here's a quick video from the Sports Conflict Institute that I wanted to share. Can you hear that? Okay, good.
Yes.
When you're winning and you yell and stomp and scream the way Mike Stoops has, when you're winning, they say he's a fiery competitor. When you lose, it's a problem. And we have a knucklehead on the field. Now we've got some of the players who are mixing it up, and this has a potential to get ugly. Some players are on the field fighting, and the benches are emptying.
Is it possible, though, that from where he's coming from, if you practice, not you would be better, but your teammates would be better?
How the hell can I make my teammates better by practicing?
Look at this now. Armstrong is absolutely flying here. He has achieved yet another page in this fairy story that just goes on.
The Sports Conflict Institute, SCI, is all about understanding, preventing, and resolving conflict in sports. So we care deeply about what happens inside and outside the lines and get involved really wherever there are issues to help support competitive goals.
Understanding, we need to know what the problems are that we're even going to work on. It doesn't make sense to come up with solutions that are broad and unspecific. We need to really think about what we want to address. So we look at cost of conflict, we look at why these things happen, we look at where we can make the most impact.
How the player handles it. I think at the end of the day, you know, you have to understand that the coach has something that you want. And this day and age, you know, if you don't, and that's playing time. And obviously you have a talent that they would like to put on display. But if you don't do what you have to do as far as following the rules, then they'll put the next guy in your place.
The cameras love to focus on the coach that's yelling at the player more than they love the coach that's, 9 times out of 10 patting the player on the back.
Atkinson losing the handle. Shooting the technicals. Look at here.
In terms of preventing, all the things that we can do to keep people on the playing field and keep performance as the main focus. So we look at ways to focus on team dynamics, we look at help in terms of education and support, we look at all the structures that we can put in place. And really what we're talking about is it's so much cheaper to prevent a conflict than it is to resolve it.
This is a day removed from Bernardo Sidney being suspended from the team, missing a game after a similar incident at practice.
Hackman Jones, through failure, gives great advice. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Here's where I'm a screw up. Do this.
I think what we need is a trainer-to-trainer type of model, is my real opinion. Because coaches and other folks that are with these student athletes every day need to understand how to do it.
A lot of the pieces I have used and talked about when I've had my individual talks with my team, but never had anything where everything was there together, and that's why I think this could be fantastic.
We can think of something like the Garrett Blunt situation, and we can deal with that in practice the first time there is a fight, and address it so it doesn't happen there. It's far less likely to happen in a major nationally televised event when the costs are far more comprehensive at that point.
Kind of always taught to view your competitors as people that you're just working together with and kind of striving towards the same goal. And I think that's what's awesome about running, is that it's kind of, you get nervous about racing these people that are really good, but ultimately when you race the best people, you're going to bring out the best in each other.
Resolving is the bread and butter of what we do in conflict resolution. It's mediation, it's arbitration, it's negotiation, it's all the things after something's happened that we can do in the aftermath, including restorative justice. We're very good at it. We have years and years of research of doing the resolving. The key for us is we want to move things more and more towards preventing where the costs are far less.
It can be hard to find the positive in conflict, but at times I think when you hear a level voice or a voice of reason, although it can be difficult to find at times, that can be a diffusive factor in conflict.
You could probably point out some examples of players getting into arguments in Major League Baseball where players are getting into arguments in a dugout. But, you know, we're all kind of brainwashed as athletes that you kind of deal with things like that. And the teams that are exceptional and win championships are the teams that have great chemistry. And the teams that have those issues are the teams that don't win. You know, so it's not an accident. This is a team game, and it's no different in business or in little league or middle school or high school sports. When there's a natural cohesion that's within a group of people, they're going to work together well.
So we work on a range of cases. We work with teams. We work with major football programs to deal with issues around conduct and create leadership and accountability models. We've done postseason assessment instruments. We do observation. We've set up an ombuds office that handles all the conflicts that happen at one of the local youth sports organizations. We've worked with a number of the leagues around issues of training and around conflict management.
In terms of conflict, if you look at what the elements are of any story, and any sport requires a storyline, in essence, what you need is conflict, because conflict ultimately and hopefully prompts resolution, and resolution means there's been a result, and that's what sport is based on.
The Sports Conflict Institute is about preparing for optimal performance.
So even though we don't have the Sports Conflict Institute,
Facebook,
we don't have them. You have me, you have seasoned veterans in our field, and I took the liberty of putting all this together with all the experience and all the veterans that are out there to, in a short amount of time, and place this together. So like I mentioned, there is some interaction with this. Would like to know, well, conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. Therefore, I did a poll. I'm going to launch it out. Actually, here, let me just go over. So obviously, what you just saw, we can all relate if you run sports. Conflict is part of sports, so we all need to accept that. In sport, common criterion for success is to defeat one's opponent. So naturally, this leads to competition and conflict among competing parties, as well as within their own team. As you know, conflict brings out emotions, and that can get heated. So conflict is natural, as we mentioned, but an effective athletic administrator, which is you, we all are leading this, we have to respond to conflict and be able to control it. So in sports, we'll focus conflict on admin staff officials, parents, spectators, coaches, and players. When life throws you a curveball, hit it out of the park. So we all work at a park. So how many are you comfortable with conflict? Right now, I'm going to put out a poll, and I'm going to launch it. And if you don't see it, it's on the bottom. I'm launching it. So everybody should pop up this poll. We won't see your name on this. I'll just give a result. If you can't find it, go on the bottom of your screen towards your right side. There is a triangle with different shapes. So go ahead and start inputting it. And then, yeah, I'll give you like 5 seconds. So right now I can see how many's voting right now. So, okay, it's up 15. So I have 19 now. So let's keep it up. I just want to see how many on the field are comfortable with conflict. Your name is not going to be shown on this once the result shows. All right, I got 21 votes coming in. Keep it going, keep it going. I see we have 55 on this meeting right now. So at least let's get half. That means you guys are still sleeping. There you go. I have 31 votes coming in. Can I get a little bit more? 32. I feel like I'm doing a bargaining thing. I said it's going to be interactive, so keep it going. If you haven't voted, if you're right next to somebody, help them find it out. It's on the very bottom. Don't leave the meeting. Keep going to your right where you show everyone next to the chat. It's called activities. Click on that. Click on polls. And then we'll go ahead and put it 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, 2 more votes came in. 3, 2, 1. Another 2 votes come in. Oh, another one coming in. We got 39 votes who voted if you're comfortable. And this is all you. It's not a hard question. All right, we got 40. We're almost there. Well, that's more than 50% of you that are still awake and listening to this presentation right now. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll just to see that. End poll. And I'm going to show everyone the results. I think I'm doing this right. It's the first time I'm doing that. Can everybody see the results? Okay, but I don't know if you could see it, but 16 votes said yes, 17 said sometimes, 7 says no. All right, so we'll continue. So at least we know who's comfortable running the conflict. So let me end the poll and go back to. So suggested steps towards managing conflict. We don't realize, but the officials have it tough, even with confident and experienced officials. So you see when the officials are out there, these are the things that they have to deal with. You know, disagreement from participants over a penalty, perceived bias shown by the official in the eyes of a participant or coach, frustration shown by participant as a result of their level of performance or competition results, or misunderstanding of instructions or rulings from an official. So I put this out there. 3 umpires discussing how they make calls. The first one says, I call them as I see them. The second one says, I call them as they are. And the third one says, they ain't nothing until I call them. And in our field, we don't have a video replay. And you know, out there in the professionals, you can see that they go with the phones like, hey, official, I have your cell phone. You missed 3 calls or you missed 5 calls. But like I said, they have it tough. And even with good officials, you'll still get complaints. I know sometimes people say, well, why do you pay that much for that official? Well, for me, I pay a good official, good experienced official for that peace of mind, because if they can control the field, that's less complaints going towards me. Let's see. So this is another organization. It's called Coach and A&D. So I pulled this out, and it goes over 5 types of conflict in the athletic program, which is value, tangible, interpersonal, boundary, and perceptual. So the values conflicts are struggles over beliefs, values, or principles. So one example is a parent of a teen complained about their child receiving a flagrant violation. Our rule is clear that you'll be ejected for fighting, but the parents valued aggressive play to win at all costs. They viewed it as part of the game. They felt the penalty was too excessive. Our belief system were in opposition. So obviously a value conflict exists. And with value conflicts, you'll understand that it's not easily resolved. In most cases, cannot be resolved. Both sides simply agree to disagree. So with values, I just want to know if you could just type it up on the chat box. What is your center's value? I'm curious to see what that is. If people know, or let me get the chat. Can you type it in? What's your center's value? Value is important. I mean, that's your base. Nobody knows what they value? I didn't see anything in there. Should I pick people? Oh, there it is. Thank you, Brian. Creating safe space. That's a value. Anyone else? Do I have to pick on you? I'll pick a name right now. Okay, there you go. It's coming in. At Rose Hill, coaches and officials don't disagree in front of public, having good sportsmanship. All right, well, we're putting in some good values. Thank you. So this is one of the conflicts. Let me go on to. So then we have the tangible. Oops, sorry, I went back. Then we have the tangible conflict. All right, awesome. People are coming in, making sure children have fun regardless of the turnout of the game. Inclusion. So tangible conflict are those that can be measured, shared, or counted. Money, personnel, benefits, or facilities are some examples. So you have 2 coaches that want to use the same fields on the same day and time, Or another tangible conflict is issues as to why the other center we play with charges less. So those you can count, and they're more readily resolved than other types of conflict. Then you have the interpersonal conflict. It's about feelings, about who you are as a person. And these are very common. You do see it around. Let's see. Yeah, they're the most second difficult to resolve because it's feelings, it's emotions. That's where conflict arises. Most important thing to remember is interpersonal conflict is most often the secondary result of another conflict. So take your time to look at it. So for example, parents come and complain about a particular coach does not like their child or is mistreating their child. As the conversation develops, you find out that the real complaint is that they're not playing enough time so that they think it's unfair. So then you have boundary conflict, territorial physical boundary conflict, where you have a certain area, someone has violated your area. So an example of this is baseball coaches and parents feel that the baseball fields are for their use and should not be used for soccer. You have that boundary of the sports. Or you have a coach had a parent step in to help one game, and now the parent feels he's doing a better job and starts leading the team and disregarding the coach. So with boundary conflict, if you ignore this, it's going to escalate. So usually staff has to intervene. Then you have perceptual conflict, and this is the easiest to resolve. This is all about perception. This is usually just a misunderstanding. This type of conflict results pretty much from a failure to communicate. When parents come in to complain about playing time, they usually do it under the guise as the coach is not treating my child fairly. So communication here is a preferred strategy. Sports rules are important to share, and knowing the type of conflict can help you start resolving. So here's another question. So I'm gonna pull it out on the poll. Let me get the poll, launch the poll here. So I'm gonna launch it. All right, we're going to have you guys all vote again. So the mask and new vaccine mandate that we have to enforce in our sports program, what type of conflict will arise? So go ahead and start voting. Let's see if you were paying attention on the types of conflict. And come on, you know this is going to happen in our field. I mean, if it hasn't happened to you already, it's going to happen. We just had this dealing. So go ahead and start putting it in. All right, we got some votes coming in. We got 9 votes already. You guys still awake? All right, we got 16 votes. So hopefully we could get at least the same amount of votes as our first. Because the first question we had 40 votes that came in. And now we're up 22 on this one. And if you don't remember, go back to that shape at the very bottom right hand and click on poll and input your answer of what type of conflict this will occur. I got 27 in. I'll give you 5 seconds and then I'll just go ahead and end the poll and then launch the results. 5, 4, 3, 2, some more votes are coming in. 2 and 1. So I have 32 votes. I'm going to end the poll. It's okay. We're all learning here. So we show value, interpersonal, boundary, perceptional. This one is a little bit of mixture, but the number one, of course, boundary is, but the number one is value. This is a value conflict. Just last week, we had a coach who just refuses to wear the mask and, complain about the vaccine mandate. He says, he said, and he specifically said it, and I'm like, oh, perfect. I can use that example because he said, I value my body, my choice, and I value what I want to do, what to wear. And he threw a fit, parents, and, it just got chaotic. But, we did speak to that coach, and though he valued the whole my freedom, my choice, obviously, as staff, we value our jobs. And so, but we did tell him that it's the department's rule. And, complaining to us, we're not the policy maker here. We just enforce those rules. He could say all this, but I can't change that rule. I did give him my, email. I said, go ahead and send me an email. He said, I'll write you a whole book. I still haven't got an email. That is usually a good technique. Like, send me an email, put it all in writing, and then we'll go forward and I'll move it up. But I still haven't got it. But obviously, unfortunately, as I mentioned, values the hardest conflict. Usually we're going to have to agree to disagree. I did give him a choice. I know he said freedom of choice. We did say, all right, you have a freedom to choose to keep the mask on, continue as our coach, or unfortunately, thank you for your time. We're just going to have to get another coach if you can't adhere to that rule, mask mandate. So unfortunately, we did lose that coach because he refuses. And but I got a good coordinator, Kevin, shout out. He had to take up another team. Sorry, Kevin, but yeah, we lost 2 teams. But Kevin stepped up and he's taking another team right now. So thank you. All right, on to the next one. Let's see. So always keep in mind, we are in recreation, so recreation first. All the trainings that you're going through, this kind of helps with this. So minimizing conflict. Why do we want to minimize conflict for the most part? Because you don't want no drama. No drama. No drama. Exactly. I mean, conflict does bring drama. We just don't want that drama. I mean, we already get enough drama as it is working in the field. So if we can minimize conflict, that's, kudos to us, everyone in the field. So here, to minimize conflict, prevention is always better than the cure. If you can take action in the early game, conflict is less to occur. So here's just a little bit of listing, make competitors aware of your presence by reacting immediately to rule infringement when appropriate, remain objective no matter what prior knowledge a participant or team's official has, be definite and firm with the decisions and communication. That's very important because they will bully you. Look sharp and act sharp will gain respect as an official. Don't take criticism personally. Remember, people get emotion. When we had last week, I know that whole drama, that coach is like, why are you treating me like a kid? I know our rec assistant was like, because you're acting like one. He was, but, we just got to, be careful with those things. And then provide structure, guidance, acknowledge the participant's abilities, experience, speak clearly, firmly in heated situations, keep cool. And if the situation starts to get a bit heated, calm voice, relax, they'll follow you. So these are just some of the ways to minimize it. So here, this is very important. And through your sports training, they reference this. It's kind of like your Bible. Youth Sports Blue Book. And there's another one, the Nuts and Bolts Approach to Sports League Management. This is a guiding principle of running a good sports league. If you follow and implement this, and most of the issues will be prevented and or minimized. So this is your guiding, like I said, your sports Bible including the nuts and bolts. So sportsmanship. We all hear it. We all see it. Do we really know what it is? We do have a mission statement. We all know sportsmanship is everyone's responsibility. Be a good sport. And so I know sometimes it'd be nice to hear another person. Can someone volunteer to read the sportsmanship mission statement? So just unmute and go ahead and read. Or if you don't want to volunteer, then I'm going to have to voluntold, and I'm going to pick somebody out.
I'll do it.
Cool, thanks.
The mission of the City of Los Angeles Department of Recreation and Parks Sportsmanship Program is to inform and prepare the patrons, participants, spectators, volunteers, and staff related to youth and adult sports programs to the department's policy, procedures, and expectations regarding ethical behavior, fair play, integrity, compliance to the rules, and the elements of sportsmanship. All athletic contests will represent in perception and practice the appreciation of athletic participation and shared educational experience of competition. All individuals associated with organized athletics activities will be aware of and responsible for their influence on the behavior of others and be models of good sportsmanship at all.
Thank you, David. He volunteered. Awesome. So there it is. you guys should all know your sportsmanship mission statement, what we're here for, and this applies to everybody. He hit it all: patrons, participants, spectators, volunteers, and staff. Yes, including staff, your rec assistants. So this is our sportsmanship. This is our grounds, our foundation to follow. Oops. All right, so bring it back up. This is an example of another sportsmanship. I took this from another city. I actually like their little flyer, and they even break it down in detail. So I just put this up as an example. So does anybody know what a code of conduct is? I know we fill it out, but you could write it in the chat or go ahead and unmute and speak. Does anyone know what a code of conduct is? On chat sheet? You're gonna put it in the box? Nobody? You do it all the time. I'm hopeful. Hopefully you guys are all doing that code of conduct.
It's our expectation.
Go ahead, Raul. He raised a hand.
Sorry, Justin, go ahead if you want to.
I see Raul raise a hand. So David says policy that outlines principles, standards that all employees and third parties acting on behalf of the company must follow. Something, and Brian says something parents don't follow. Well, here that's why we're gonna bring this up. All right, well, here, code of conduct. This is the definition. So conduct, like you guys said, acting, behaving. So conduct is the way the person behaves in a particular place or situation. A code of conduct is a set of rules and responsibilities outlining the social norms for an individual or an organization. That being said, well, I was going to ask you, but too late. You guys already saw that. The code of conduct, we base this on our 6 pillars of character: trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, citizenship. Citizenship is, with others that have researched, is actually in replacement for integrity. So here we have it. We have the sports code of conduct. We have one for the parent and the player and the coach. So if you guys are not having the parents and player fill this out, you guys are going to be expecting some conflict. So you guys got to make sure they fill this out. So of course, with all your application, all signatures, and make sure that they understand that. Obviously, we like to win without gloating, lose without complaining, and treat your opponent with respect. The code of conduct, pretty much, if they sign it, this is almost like our contract agreement. It's necessary to remind them that they agreed on this, and they'll forget that they signed this. But when drama or conflict happens, you could always pull it up and say, remember when you signed this, and then you said that, you know, you're going to adhere to these rules, and then it just kind of a little bit puts them on check. So we also have the coach's code of conduct, and I know a lot of people just sign without even realizing it, but it's important that they fill this out. And you know, we bring it back up when we do the All-Stars, and we have the coaches sign this again, because their code of conduct really matters. It's important. And I wanted to give an example here. Dodgers. I pulled this out from the Dodgers website. They even have a fan code of conduct. I mean, you talk about all the information and how the code of conduct is. So Dodger has this, and this can apply to our spectators, everybody who's watching the game, because they can get rowdy as well. So here, I just wanted to give you that example. And then also I pulled again from the Dodgers. Everybody's a Dodger fan, I guess, right? So they even have rules and policies at the Dodger Stadium. So if you have rules and policies at your rec center, it would make it so much better. And at least that they know what they're getting into. So here is an example of Dodger Stadium. And so I pulled this out from different organizations, different leagues, youth leagues, different cities, and they kind of put this out and they blast it in front of their area or the grass, or they just kind of have the code of conduct there to remind them. They just remind them that this is just a game. You know, these are kids, the coaches are volunteers, you know, the referees are human, and this is not the World Cup series or, you know, the Dodger series, or no college scholarship will be handed out today. So it just kind of like reminds them. And at the end, it just goes back to, tomorrow the kids are going to go back to school. Tomorrow, parents are going to go back to work. So just kind of reel them in. So these are just some examples that I pulled out for your reference. Oh, shout out to Garcia Park. He actually has one out there. This is Garcia's Park's banner. So shout out to Christian, the director there. So Garcia has a recreation center, which Garcia's Recreation Center believes sportsmanship is an expectation. Please let the players play. Let the coaches coach. Let the officials officiate. Let the spectators be positive. So he goes and he announced for every pretty much title that was there. So that's everyone. And that's what we said about conflict prior. So, good job, Christian. All right, here's next. So conflict can get heated. We all know that, right? So just look at this. If you see this, you think it's innocent, not bad. I mean, we do things that we don't mean any harm to it. So this could be on a shirt or just saying, but sometimes it can get backfired. So if you close your eyes and if you didn't know we were talking about sports, how would this sound? Like if you close your eyes and you know we were talking about this, I teach kids to hit and steal. Warning, I kick balls. Or I teach kids to shoot and steal. It can have a double meaning. There's no clear communication, rules not clear, agreements not in place. So that's why communication is the key. So we go to resolving conflict. So we kind of hit all the parts: understanding, preventing, now resolving. And I know I have a few minutes left, so I'm going to kind of move this along. But resolving conflict, pretty much, well, you know how to do that. So here's a professional: be professional, remain calm. So these are some bullet points. Address the problem, not the emotion. I know sometimes they'll start hitting you emotionally, but just remember, go back to the facts, go back to specifics. So put aside the emotions of all parties. And then, so there's other things. Focus on the person. People are not objects. They don't like being treated as that. Keep eye contact. Use their name as possible. Recognize that they have something to say and don't just dismiss it. Be fair. Avoid team, individual bias at all costs. Demonstrate integrity. Be confident, open, and be firm. So those are details. I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but it is there for your reference. We're recreation professionals, right? So, don't engage on certain things, no matter how tempting. Do not respond to emotional talk, insults, and attacks made by the high conflict parent. You reply only to the facts about the children. By doing so, you're putting boundaries. There you go again, boundary conflict, right? That will lessen misunderstanding, circular conversation that lead to nowhere, frustration on your part. So just keep your power and your peace. So creating understanding through common ground when you're speaking to parents, just a few things to say when they're talking. If you create a common ground that you're on their side, as they're venting, or usually just say like, okay, I understand what you're saying. I agree with you on the part of, I can see why you would be upset. So these are kind of three things that I usually say. Okay, I understand why you're upset. And then I'll go, but, or this states, our rule states. And then create analogies when explaining. And some of these are funny. I know some maybe not appropriate or whatever, but I know depending on your style, we have to understand that we all have different personalities. What works with one will not work for the other. And I'll bring up Christian because when he handles conflict, he brings humor to it. I can see another person trying to implement the same thing, but then they come out as sarcastic. So it doesn't come out the same way. Or, I tend to explain things, but in creating analogies, I know one director in the Valley was complaining about wanting to move up from at a Pee-wees or whatever to minors, but want to stick together and all this stuff. And the director said, well, at some point you got to cut that umbilical cord. I had a parent who complained about, the coach and the parents being ghetto when she actually instigated and went in, sat on the table out of all the tables that the parents and the coaches sit. And so she said, no, they're ghetto. And towards the end of the game, she did that on purpose when they had all the seats. And I had to pretty much tell her, well, let me de-ghettoify that for you. And I told her, you went to college? She said, yes. Do they have assigned seatings? No, when you sit there, isn't that kind of, it becomes your seat for that rest of the quarter or that season? And she kind of understood that has nothing to do with ghetto-ness. But yeah, I told her I had to de-ghettoify that for her. But if you create analogies that are relatable, I've talked to parents where they are upset at like, or not upset, but they don't want a certain coach, or I tell them it's actually good experience for children to experience different coaches. And I bring it back to them and I said, well, you went to school. Let's just forget about college. You went kinder to 12th grade, high school. So that's 12, 13 years of school. Was all your teachers great? You had teachers that was good and bad, but you learned from them. And they're like, oh, okay. And so it kind of breaks down. So if you could create analogies, great. Let me go on to the next. So just additional reminders in handling sports conflicts. So recreation first, stay calm, cool, collective. This is your biggest factor. Again, if you have a well-run, organized sports league with rules in place, prior meetings, agreements, all in a timely manner, and stick to it, most of your conflicts will just not disappear, but you can minimize it. If you just remind coaches, volunteers, and staff that they represent our park. Sometimes I do this as well. If I get the complaint, I'm not going to handle the complaint at the moment because I want that person to calm down. So we call it giving a 24-hour cooling period before responding. It's also to say to give time to investigate and gather oneself. I just had to do that last week. And then use chain of command for consistent answers. That's why we have the rec assistant handle it first. If they say no, they complain to the coordinator. Coordinator says no, they go to the director. And if I say no, at least they got the 3 strikes before they go to the supervisor. So at least 3 strikes in a row, they'll just end it there. So more importantly, keep director and your supervisor updated in case an issue goes directly to them. And if you follow all policy and procedures in place from our city, center, and sports board, it will greatly minimize any issue and prevents you from getting in trouble. And the biggest thing is network. Call and ask the advice of a seasoned staff. We have staff out there. I remember running All-Stars. I have to bring this up. So we did All-Stars. We played a junior. It was a championship game, and a brawl broke loose. And I was my team and Pecan's team. And Al, he's a sports board president. He was there. It got bad where the parents actually went on the field, and Al just went in the middle of the center. He had his hands out, and he was just chanting a mantra that says, keep calm, keep calm. And it just brought people down. Because if you tell them you need to relax, the minute you say they get offensive. But he just said keep calm, or he said something. But yeah, shout out to Al as well. Next. So I gathered a little conflict questions from the field, just a sample. So I didn't bring this out. We can be here all day, but I just want to give some of the answers to a few questions. So 1, a player who thinks he or she's the best and don't need practice. Parent agrees and child is that good and will only be there for games. Coach wants player to attend practice with them, but refuses, and coach complains to staff about it. How would you deal with it? You just have a conversation with a parent that this is a team sport, which relies on all members to be present. It is strongly recommended since it will help enhance a child's skills, teamwork, bonding with other players, perhaps even develop friendship for the rest of their lives. This one I'm going a little quick because of time. Volunteer coach threatens he will quit as a volunteer and most of his players won't play if he doesn't get his way. I've had that before, bring it on. But so, a few things that says we are looking for coaches that is here for the community, not just for one specific team. Coach, this is a recreation league and we need to be fair and transparent to all participants. Or you can say, thank you for your interest in coaching, but my staff will take over the team. I had that happen and I had to tell the coach, okay, if you do leave, thank you, you are a volunteer, but I need to know today because I need to get a coach replacement. He's like, I'll take the kids. The kids are not going to play. I said, again, thank you. This is, they're free to do what they choose. And if you do that, I need to know because I have a waiting list. But of course, he's end up staying. Heated game, verbal leading to a fight, physical altercation. What do you do when a fight actually happens during a game? Step in and stop the game, eject the players involved, remind everyone that we need to adhere to the sportsmanship code of conduct if they want to continue playing in the league, set up a meeting away before they're allowed to play again. A player arguing with its own coach, not wanting to listen and talking back. I mean, these are real life situations. So these are real life cases as well in our field. Have a talk with a parent player. They need to know about the program as a volunteer run base. They need to adhere to the player's code of conduct. Parents and spectators yelling and screaming at the officials making bad calls. We get that all the time too. I had one official take out his whistle and gave it to him. He goes, "Here, do you want to make the call?" And the parent was like, well, you know, but I mean, like I said, everybody handles them differently. Remind them that they are in a sportsmanship zone, and if they can't be positive and supportive, they have to leave the facility. That's why it's very important you have a strong official. I've had officials keep people out or, you know, kick them out. Uniform size issue, not fitting the kids. Always have a backup plan, order extra uniforms, keep the same design so you will have backup, have the same teams for all the division if possible. This way you can switch with the other teams, order in enough time to know what add-ons you need, trade with nearby rec centers, contact the warehouse to see what is available. It's good to be nice to your fellow colleagues because when you need help, they'll help you out. Parents complain about the official we have and don't want that specific official to ref their game. It's not their choice who officiates their game. Find out what transpired from the past games that led to their complaint. If the official is a volunteer, we can suggest that if they're interested, we can invite them to the official training certification classes. I think I had a coaches meeting, our last coaches meeting, and they were complaining about the official, even one that is really good. And I throw it back on them. Do you want to officiate? Or because we are short staff on officials. So, and I said, if not, if you have officials, bring them on. I need to hire officials. But they usually, they drop it there because they don't have anybody. Coaches and officials not agreeing on numerous calls and getting into verbal altercations. So need to investigate into the verbal altercation, talk to staff, teams, other coaches in the league. If official is bad, then take them off the schedule. If it's the coach, then we'll need to meet the coach and tell the coach it's not tolerated to be confrontational with officials. And I just had that also last week. When you run big parks, you're going to have conflict. It just happen, more people. A whole team fighting another team during games. Stop the game, isolate two teams, move them to a different location, take witness, incident report statements from player, coaches, officials, staff, spectators, then meet with the coaches. Then, you know, we have to fill out all those reporting forms as well. That's internal. All-star selection process, have coaches nominate players along with recommendation input from staff, number of slots awarded based on teams finish, have the instructions of all-star selection conducted during the draft meeting. Just different. Everybody runs all-star a little bit different. Recreation assistant coaches are unruly. Need to remove that from coaching. Take or attend coaching classes if they want to coach again. Knowledge of game rules on the officials we use. Must communicate with officials, let them know of any house or variation rules that the center is using should be done prior to league starting. So I'm going to run this. I know I have like 5 more minutes left. Officials favoring one team over making calls, another because it's their home site. Have a talk with the official, you know, it's not as acceptable, bring it to the home staff. Communicate with the home staff and inform that the officials is not being impartial. Officials not properly trained, either train them, and we have programs here, send them to city training sessions such as work, other training offered by the Muni Sports section. And there's the last one, coaches not properly trained, have them go through PCA, LA84 Foundation, American Youth Soccer Association, or other amateur athletic agencies to provide training. You could reach out to your larger organization. So we have stuff, give them choices. Here, we're going to hold off questions because I wanted to bring on Ramon Cerillos, and I wanted him to give advice on handling sports conflict. All right, go ahead, Ray. You take it away.
All right. So yeah, my advice to everyone that's starting their leagues is that the most important thing is have a foundation during your coaches meeting, right? And also your parent meeting. If you take care of business right there, having all the rules outlined, like Letty has mentioned in the slides, and also in your parents meeting, expected, you know, to let them know what's expected of them. Especially a lot of conflicts come in with all-stars, right? And during that time, you need to have those meetings and how they represent your park and how, you know, they should act accordingly, right? And even as Letty mentioned, sometimes, you know, you do the correct thing, your boss does the correct thing, then it comes up to management, and it could, you know, they could change the verdict, right? And, you know, you have to, you know, not draw a line in the sand, because as each level it goes up to, there might be different reasons why they agreed to something or not. So just keep that in mind. All right. Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank everybody. I know we all have stories. You all have stories. I wish we could have like a panel to go over it, but like I said, we'll be here all day. I just wanted to give special thanks to Ray and Kuhn. Actually, he went over that whole list that the conflict went over. But like I said, I know I put this all together. You guys have great resources out there, great people, knowledgeable. As you could see, Ray's been on the field for 30 years. Kuhn has been on the field for 34 years, but there are great people. There's a sports board, and we saw that in the beginning as well. So again, may all your wishes come true. Hopefully you can deal with the conflict, and here's some of the resources where I got that, and that pretty much ends my presentation. So thank you. Sorry, it was quick. I made it on time. Go ahead, Mark Krotz.
All right, thanks, Letty. If anybody has any questions, I guess you can stick around a little bit for Letty to answer questions. Otherwise, this is being recorded, so you can check out the recording. There's a shared file with all the trainings in it, not only the, well, I was only here to record 3 of them, so, but a lot of the other details, like Carlos's presentation, he left the PowerPoint. So you'll be able to check all that out. Make sure you check with your supervisor if you don't have access to the shared file, or you can email me and then I can share it with you. Okay, unless anybody has any other questions. Thank you all for being here.
No questions, and yeah, I was going to have Ray. That's why Ray was going to be in. We have Mark on, and so thank you, Mark, for putting all this together, and all the other stuff ties into this. So thanks, everyone.